I actually wasn't initially going to move to LA. I was going to move to New York, but I went to a talk by this guy, Ryan Shore, who is Howard Shore's nephew,
Okay.
and who's also a film composer. And he gave a talk, how to be a working composer in New York, something along those lines. And a friend of mine and I got there a bit early, and so we chatted with him, and he said, "Oh, you should move to LA." And we
Yeah.
were like, "Okay." He was like, "Yeah, they like this is the talk they wanted me to give, but like, yeah, you're young, go to LA."
Don't be
So
here. Yeah.
right, so we did. We packed up and moved to LA.
Welcome to the Soundiron Podcast, where we sit down and chat with some of the great minds in film, TV, and video game composing, music production, and all things music tech. My name's Craig Peters, and this week Nathan Bowler and I sat down with Ryan Leach, who's an award-winning composer for film and TV. During this conversation, Ryan shares his story of growing up in Australia, his journey into getting into music and studying at the Berklee College of Music, working as a composer's assistant at Hans Zimmer's Remote Controlled Productions, starting a YouTube channel, sharing educational content, working with Master the Score, and much more. So if you've been enjoying the Soundiron Podcast, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review, as we love to hear your guys' feedback. And don't forget to share this episode with any of your friends and family who might enjoy it as well. So without further ado, here is our conversation with composer Ryan Leach.
So my first question on your website, you say 8-year-old American growing up in South Australia. I'm interested. Talk to me about Australia.
Yeah, so I started guitar at 8. I actually moved to Australia when I was 7.
Okay.
My dad worked for an oil company, which was less controversial in
Huh?
the 80s, I
Yeah.
guess, but or 90s. So second through sixth grade in Australia, which is a pretty influential time.
That's a very
And
formative time. Yeah.
yeah, and a buddy of mine, it was show and tell, and he brought in his electric guitar, and it was just like the best thing I'd ever seen,
Yes.
like amazed. So that's when it started. But actually, my parents, so I said, I want a guitar. And my parents were like, cool, we'll get you a guitar, but you have to keep up with lessons for a year or you have to pay for it, which for an 8-year-old was like
It's a
insane.
lot
Like,
of,
might as well like buy a house or something, right?
Yes.
So for some reason, they didn't get me an electric guitar though. They got me a nylon, and it just wasn't fun. It just was not the same as what I saw. So I did stick with it for a year because I was like, I can't possibly pay that mortgage. But I actually gave up after about a year, and it wasn't until I was a teenager that I got the bite again and kind of found it. But
yeah, I was gonna say you got a few guitars in the back. I was like, must have
I
kept it going.
do. They're more decoration than anything anymore, sadly.
Yeah, that's
But
kind of like in
yeah,
my room.
yeah. I went to Berkeley as a guitar principal, but ended up playing bass more than anything else, which way suited my personality. Uh,
Interesting. Who are some of your favorite bass players?
Favorite bass players?
Like top three.
Top three. God, that's a really tough question because I don't follow it anymore. The first person that comes to mind is Victor Wooten, but that
All right,
feels cliche. Paul McCartney,
cool.
probably, and John Paul Jones, I guess. Yeah,
Interesting. Can you bust out any Victor Wooten double thumps?
absolutely not. No.
I know every time I would ever try that on a bass, like just the top part of my thumb just becomes raw, and I'm like, I can't. I don't have that.
Yeah.
And you need a hitchhiker thumb too to get that. I don't have that.
No, but like I went into Berkeley as a guitar, so it was like Satriani and like that whole
All
that
right.
was what I went in on, you know. So it was just more that Buddy was like, "Hey, can you play bass?" I was like, "I guess so," you know.
Yeah.
And then I was like, "I like this."
But that versatility, jumping from instrument to instrument, helps with the composition, right?
It does. I'm a full, moderately adequate rhythm section player. You know, drums, guitar, bass, piano, whatever.
That's
I can
cool.
cover it myself, but I wouldn't necessarily take a gig on most of those. You know, bass,
Yeah.
I might take a bass gig, but I would never take a drum gig or anything. But I'll do my own parts, no problem, for sure.
Nice.
Yeah, it helps a lot. It does hurt when it comes to woodwinds and brass and just having no clue like how to play those things, you know.
Yeah.
So, but strings are a lot easier just because, you know, guitar and bass lend themselves to string instruments pretty easily. So obviously bowing is different, but that comes so much more naturally than woodwinds and stuff like that. They're tough.
Yeah. Whenever I was like learning about orchestration and just like the different wind players and stuff like that, and like you hear like, oh, there's like a this like a B flat clarinet or this or that. It's just like so many different things, and just like with the ranges and like how they play and just like all that stuff is just like, yeah, it's like takes a lot of years just to even learn that, let alone like everything else and how everything works together and all that.
You just even learn about it, not even learn to play it. It's
Yeah.
like crazy how much knowledge you need. You know, like, it's
Yeah.
like I'm like, oh, that's better on the English horn than the oboe. And like, how do you know that? And you're like, I just too many books. I don't know.
How'd you start making the transition from more guitar and bass and more band type music into wanting to get into more like composing and all that?
I was a film scoring major at Berkeley, so that was always the intention.
Oh,
Even
okay.
going into school, because that seemed like even though I was like, yeah, maybe someday I'll be a rock star. I think somehow I thought I didn't know any better. I thought being a composer would be a better way to have a career or something. I would give myself different advice probably, but I would go with rock star. No, I was actually it was a toss up between going being a film major or going into music because I was just obsessed with like Hollywood movies and it was kind of a golden era of I mean, this was around like 2000 2001, so there were a lot of good movies around that time and it was tough, so film scoring seemed like the sweet spot of getting it all.
So, who were like some of the composers that sort of piqued your ear into wanting to get into that? Because I feel like it's like that's one of those things like when you're a kid, like you always kind of notice music in movies, but some people don't necessarily put together like, hey, someone actually can make that.
Right,
You know what I mean? So,
right.
like, because like for me, like the first time I ever connected music, like actually really paying attention. I mean, everyone knows Star Wars or like John Williams stuff and can like hum it, but they don't maybe didn't really think about that either. But like for me, like when I started watching like Tim Burton movies with Danny Elfman's music is where I was kind of like, oh, I started really sort of like piecing together sort of that kind of like emotional aspect. Like, wow, that really kind of makes that like, why did you feel that way when you hear that music with that scene,
Right.
where you start kind of connecting the pieces? Is there like any movies or composers that sort of like made you kind of like perk your ear, like, oh, like,
There was I remember the exact moment and it dates me, but it was in Titanic. So I
hmm,
was, I don't know, middle school, high school, somewhere around there when that came out. And there was a moment, spoiler alert, they're in the water near the end. And I remember there was this like bass drum thud. I don't remember exactly the scene, but they were in the water, they're struggling, and there was this big bass drum thud. And it was this like, gut punch feeling. And that was when I was like, whoa, like how did he do that?
hmm,
Like, and that was when I realized like, wow, music can actually be really powerful. And
yeah,
all from a bass drum, pretty much. But yeah, it was James Horner, I
hmm,
guess, was I didn't become like a super James Horner fan after that necessarily, but I just remember that happening. And I saw Amadeus around that same time too. And that was so just like made being a composer seem so fun as
Yeah.
well. So it kind of all came together. It's just like, wow, composing is so cool. And then that like emotional moment in Titanic, and I was just like, this is really cool. So definitely that score was very influential. Sure. And I had Star Wars soundtrack, of course.
hmm,
Um, and like all my high school projects, anytime we made a video, I was really into like picking the music for it'd be like a history project, but I'd be like, oh, I gotta get like the perfect music behind this thing. And I'd be going through all my CDs and whatever. And like probably mostly like classical. So like I had a bunch of like the best of Vivaldi. Like I didn't have like deeply refined taste, but I had a bunch of stuff like that. The best of Mozart, the best of Vivaldi, and I would like go through that and kind of score my projects with as a music editor, kind of, I
that's
guess.
cool. That's cool because yeah, because you can kind of instantly see sort of what works just by kind of temping out stuff. It's just like,
Right.
no, no, oh, that's kind of cool. It's like close, but then it's like, but not perfect. Then you can go in and tweak it.
Yeah, I don't hate temp music like some people hate temp music. I find it helpful, I
Yeah,
guess, usually.
probably more people that just want to like have free reign and just like more of that kind of like not saying like composers who hate temper like I'm an artist and like I
Right,
want to put
right.
my vision, but like I mean I don't see why can't be helpful because it's just like instead of someone saying like I don't know I kind of want the music in the scene to be feel blue, like that doesn't
Right,
tell you anything
right.
unless you're like one of those like was it synesthesia or
Right, right.
symphony or
I'm
whatever.
not.
Yeah, so it's like okay, maybe like some like Ponticello strings or something. Does that feel like cold and blue or like I don't know. So it's like, but when you hear a temp, it's like okay, cool, all right, I get it.
I was really frustrating when a director or producer knows what they want, but they won't show you. They just try to tell you,
Mm.
that they're like, oh, I want it to feel this way or that way. The one I find the most frustrating is it was just like a corporate video gig, but they said they wanted something like Indiana Jones. And I was like, okay. And then we had our first feedback meeting and they're like, I don't know. It feels too much like movie music. which was like a bit like, what? And then they
Thanks.
said, well, how about maybe more like Star Wars?
Oh no.
And I was just, it still gives me a headache thinking about it.
It just makes me think of that scene in Basketball when he's like, "Did you fart?" And he's just like, he's just like, he's just getting this like growing headache.
Yeah. It turned out they wanted that Coldplay song with the strings, Viva La Vida or
Yep.
something. I
Oh,
somehow like I was just like banging my head against the desk, and then it was like I think they mean strings when they say movie music. I was like, I think they want that, and so I kind of knocked off the Coldplay thing, and they were like, yeah, that's what we meant by Indiana Jones, you know.
Yikes.
But yeah, if they had just played me that song, like it would have saved. I wouldn't have that headache still, right?
yeah,
But yeah,
that's hilarious.
so.
How did you transition into doing an assistantship at Remote Control?
That was mostly thanks to Berklee.
Okay.
So they have a really strong LA network, alumni network, and so I honestly don't know where I got the idea that I should be a composer's assistant, but I knew that before graduating, I was just like, that's the next step.
Right.
I wish I could know why, but somehow someone had told me that's what you're supposed to do next. And so I actually wasn't initially going to move to LA. I was going to move to New York, but I went to a talk by this guy, Ryan Shore, who is Howard Shore's nephew,
Okay.
and who's also a film composer. And he gave a talk, How to Be a Working Composer in New York, something along those lines. And a friend of mine and I got there a bit early, and so we chatted with him, and he said, "Oh, you should move to LA." And we
Yeah.
were like, "Okay." He was like, "Yeah, they like this is the talk they wanted me to give, but like, yeah, you're young, go to LA."
Don't be
So
here. Yeah.
right, so we did. We packed up and moved to LA, and it was really mostly luck, I think. I went to the alumni coordinator, said, "Hey, I want to be a composer's assistant." And he's like, "Oh, I had this guy in yesterday, Michael Levine, who's looking for a composer's assistant." And so it was honestly dumb luck for the most part. And then Michael was working at home, and then he was setting up his space at Remote Control at the time.
Nice.
So I started at his home studio, which was probably ideal because it was so much less stress, right? It was just
Right.
like him, Michael, and the other assistant, myself, just like in there. And then about a year later, we moved, which was also cool because I got to like help set up from scratch that studio, which was, I'm sure, a good experience. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's fun.
remote was intense, but it was fun. It was tiring. You've
It
heard,
was
you know
tiring.
stories, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah. What were some of
Yeah.
the things that you learned there that kind of you keep with you that sort of like those little like any of those little light bulb moments or things where you're or that just like lessons you learned that really kind of stuck with you?
Um, yeah, there's plenty. I think from Michael, I learned to write quickly because he was a TV composer, had
Mm.
two shows on CBS at the time, and the schedule was nuts. So even just one show, it's nuts. It's like they give you the edit and they expect it to be finished 2 days later. So he had
Dang.
two shows going on, and there were a couple different additional music writers, and he'd be in there working his butt off, but still like able to produce quickly and just keep going. And he would be taking on jingle work and like doing indie films on the side and stuff, and so he could just write fast. So that's probably the best thing I learned was just how to be fast, which has somehow become kind of a controversial topic. Like people are like, "Oh, the minutes of music you write doesn't matter or whatever," but it does, I
It
think.
does. It definitely does.
And
Yeah.
so that was probably the best thing I learned. And from Hans, I learned that production value is maybe 80% of the music, that like how it sounds and how people perceive it is what it is, right? So um I also he had I have to be careful how I say it, but he had kind of a bad rep at Berklee among the students. People were like, "Oh, Hans Zimmer, he just has other people write his music,"
Mm.
and that turns out to be not true at all. It turns out he's more. I think of him more like the Renaissance kind of artists who would have like their kind of assistants do like you do the table legs because I'm gonna do like the portrait or whatever. Like I'm not worried about that. That was more what it was. So it was like, oh,
Hmm.
he knows his stuff. Like you
Yeah.
don't get there by accident. I don't
Yeah.
think.
I remember I was interning and there was that same sort of attitude. And then the composer I was working for, he just said, people hate winners. That's what that
Right.
is. People hate
Right.
winners. People, like LeBron
Right.
James gets a lot of hate and for being one of the best of all time. and it's
Right.
just that's you look up and you don't like what's up there, which is Hans Zimmer at the top of everything.
I can see if you don't like the style, but you can't knock the
But I mean, yeah,
storytelling
but
and
he's
the
also
craft of Zimmer.
reinvented himself and his music multiple
Right.
times throughout the last 40 years. So it's like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah, there was a moment we were working on a Simpsons movie, and there was a moment where Michael was working on a scene. I honestly can't remember what the scene was, but Hans came in, said like three words, and walked out, and just completely changed
yeah,
the approach to the scene. And it was like he solved it. That was what we needed. I don't know what he said, like add conga drums, and it was great now or whatever.
Yeah.
But like I was just like, oh damn, it was
Huh.
like really impressive. So it was a good time. It was also sometimes like 100 hours plus a week. So.
how long were you there?
Going back, like 2 years.
Plenty
Yeah,
of time.
plenty of time. Yeah, I knew it was a low. They have a shower, and I knew it was a low when I had to use the shower that had been there so long that it was just
Oh
like, all
wow.
right, this is like I haven't been home in days.
Right.
Just like sleeping on the couch.
Sleeping. Yeah, no,
You're like
sometimes
occasional 5 minute nap. All right, fine.
it's a gig for a 22-year-old. I
Yeah.
think it's not something I could probably keep up with
Yeah,
anymore.
it's not a
Yeah.
sustainable lifestyle for 20 years for most
Right,
people. Yeah.
Yeah,
right,
it's easy to punish yourself when you're young and hungry. It's
right.
like when you like start touring or something. It's like you're like, yeah, I don't care. I'll sleep in a van.
Sleep in the
I'll
van. Yeah,
sleep in an air mattress, in between two vans outside of Walmart or something like that. But then
right,
it's like after a while, you're like, "Ah, my back,
right.
I'm tired, and I don't feel like doing
Sad.
it anymore.
Sad. It's true. I think of that as like my master's degree. I don't have a master's, but like being a composer's assistant was my master's in film
Yeah,
scoring, essentially. So highly recommended if you can get it. Um, I know it's not easy. It's a lot of work.
So how did you move out of that? So you did that for 2 years. You had the crash course, the on-the-job training, and
Right.
then you were like, all right, it's time to do something else, change it up a little bit. How did you step aside?
Yeah. Part of it was timing. It was the writer's strike of, I don't know, 2008 or whatever it was. There was like a
Oh
big
yeah.
writer's strike. And so the shows shut down. And so we were kind of twiddling our thumbs. And so that was partly where I was like, I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
I've probably not that I've learned everything I can learn, obviously. I wasn't that quite that arrogant, but like I've learned enough. I felt like I think I'm going to branch out and we're not working anyway, so I might as well split. So that kind of was the impetus. It's weird. You don't when you hear about these strikes and things, you don't think about how like all these kind of sub careers are getting shifted and
it's
changed
just
and paths are
yeah,
changing, right?
just like domino effect of everything.
Yeah, yeah. But so that was it. And I got into library music. I reached out. I basically Googled library production music and emailed all of them.
Yeah.
And so like just however many. And a couple wrote back, and one I still have a really good relationship with 15 some years later.
That's great.
That they were like a small company and then they built up, started to get bigger. They got a partnership with Discovery, which was using a lot of my stuff, and then now they're doing like ABC. Like they've grown, and I've luckily been able to kind of grow with them. So that's still my main source of income actually is like production music, TV production music stuff, which I started immediately after. The other thing is when you work 100 hours a week, you don't spend any money. So
Yeah.
I just saved, and I saved like months of room,
Runway.
basically. Runway, yeah, thank you. So when I left, I was like, I have like 6 months. I haven't done anything with my life. I mean, living in LA is not cheap, but I really like didn't do anything
Yeah.
for 4 years. So
That's killer.
yeah, and then indie films and short films and whatever you can put together. I mean, being a freelancer is just saying yes and taking every
Yeah.
single gig you can take, pretty much. So.
How are you making some of those connections on when you were starting to do like indie films and stuff like that? Like were you just going and talking to people that were doing filmmaking in school, or how are you making those
Yeah,
connections?
it's exhausting. It was a lot of going to film festivals, going to indie film fest meet and greets and screenings. Craigslist was still a thing, which I mean maybe it's still a thing, but it was
It
like
is
it was an active community at the time. So a lot of stuff came through Craigslist actually,
interesting.
which was great, which I guess now would be Facebook probably is where people would be looking for that stuff. But
Yeah, now everyone's on Facebook now just looking for stuff or just like going to forums or wherever. It's just like any place they can ask or
Any,
see.
yeah, I heard from a director friend that he hears from more composers than any other craft. Um, which I was like, why are you telling me this? But I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
because you'll see that on like Facebook groups. Someone will be like,
right,
"Hey, looking for a composer to score like a 10-minute short film," and it's just like DM,
yeah,
DM,
right,
DM, DM. I
yeah,
just sent you a
whoops,
DM. Yeah,
yeah,
and then just get blasted.
and most of them are probably not qualified either. And probably it's just people who just will throw themselves at any project they can think of. They don't look at like, is this actually an appropriate project for me to score or something? But
Yeah,
yeah, it's tough. I'm sure I've applied for thousands of gigs that I did not get. You know, that's part of it. Is you don't just write to three films, and if they don't hire you,
it's like
I guess it's not working out. I've had friends who would live in LA for months, not years, months, and be like, it didn't work out. I'm like,
Right.
dude, you know,
yeah, go to Hollywood and you'll see a lot
yeah,
of the people that that have given up. It's just like because like everyone sees that as just like like that's where you go to be a star, but it's like you know, yeah, the ones who persevere, but you have to keep pushing or else it'll eat you alive.
So it looks like you started the YouTube channel like 3 or 4 years ago. Can you talk about that process and what the idea was behind that? And like it looks like you've had some serious success on there, which is awesome.
thanks.
So just
Yeah.
like any ideas or revelations along the way?
Um, yeah, it wasn't right in the thick of the pandemic, but kind of. It was around that. It was 2021 I started it, so I think there was partly a bit of boredom,
Sure.
was a little bit, but yeah. So I said when you're a freelancer, you say yes to everything. So one of the things I did was wrote articles for this website, Audio Tuts, which Envato is the parent company. They have Audio Jungle, and it was just articles like how to use a compressor or three tips and tricks for modulation or stuff. It's basically similar to what I make now,
Right.
but written articles, and it would be a couple $100, and I'd write the article, and it was great. And I started to get really good feedback on those, and I would even get emails years after writing them. They're like, "Hey, I found your article, and it was really helpful." And I was like, "Man, this is like maybe I should pursue this, you know, and like maybe I should make like a video course." And then I would write the course. I would write an outline for like a video composition course or whatever, and then kind of stall and procrastinate and put it away and come back to it for years. And eventually I hit this point where I was like, maybe before I learn how to make a video course, I should learn how to make a video
Sure.
at all.
Yeah.
And I got really into this guy, Ali Abdal, who's
Oh yeah.
like a productivity YouTuber guy. And he had a video, like a life-changing video. It was like how to start a YouTube channel in 2021 or something like that. And I've talked about this advice before, but his advice was just take your phone, point it at yourself, and talk about three things on your desk that you like. You're like, this mug, I got this in Japan. It's like my favorite mug. I love it. And two other things, and post it. You're a YouTuber. Like,
Sure.
stop overthinking it. It's just like you're never gonna start if you don't just do it. So it clicked, like it was the right time, the right moment. I was like, he's right. And I filmed it. I filmed three books that were on my shelf. I was like, this book is still my first video that's on the channel.
Nice.
And the lighting is bad, the camera angle is weird. Like I used my phone, but it worked. Like I owe Ali a lot for that
That
because it
first
worked.
step is really hard.
And then yeah, it was just like a week later. I was like, oh, well, that was cool. I could make a video about this other thing, and it went better than expected. I thought I would maybe get a couple students, and I would kind of get inspired to finally make a video course or something. That's about what I was hoping for. I never really thought that it would be like I'd be a YouTuber,
Sure.
that it took off. But
When you were first starting, you were kind of going in with the intention of wanting to get people interested in courses. Like, were you talking about courses really, or was it just more kind of just content just to get you comfortable with making videos?
the second content, getting used to like how to produce a video, how to
Hmm.
edit in Final Cut Pro, and like how to put titles on and all that. There's a lot to learn.
Oh yeah,
I edit 95% of my own videos still. So that was also an excuse because like I like playing with Logic. I like playing with Cubase. It was like, oh, I want to play with Final Cut. That seems fun.
yeah,
But it wasn't, I didn't have a specific product or anything in mind other than I would teach private lessons. But it was good timing. A former student of mine reached out and said, "Hey, I'm starting this company, Master the Score. Would you be interested in doing some courses?" This is before my channel blew up. It was like pretty small, like I don't know, 1,000 subscribers or something. And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool." And we started talking about it. And then he reached out to, then the channel blew up by accident, kind of. And I went from like 2,000 to 80,000 in like a few months.
Oh wow.
Um, and then he reached out again, was like, "Oh, we're moving now." And I was like, "Cool. Hey, by the way, why don't you check out my channel?" And he was like, "Oh, cool, good." So we're in good shape now. So it was another one of those kind of right timing, good luck situations, I guess. Like, there's the saying, luck is preparation meets opportunity, whatever.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, totally. That's exactly what that is because it's like you're like I'm building this thing towards something, and then like another opportunity comes in that kind of just lines up with it, and it's like, oh, this is like perfect because it's like you can leverage both at the same time, because then you could use your audience for, hey, check out Master the Score,
right,
and
that's
then people
exactly what it
that get
was.
into Master
Yeah.
the Score learn about you, and it's kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it was if you build it, they will come was my mantra, starting with the YouTube videos, like making the second, the third, the fourth video. My wife thought it was just like my new hobby for the moment, and that I'd get bored and move on to something else, which happens a lot.
Sure.
But I was like, no, this one's different. She's like, whatever, whatever. I actually took Ali Abdal's course. It was called the Part-Time YouTuber Academy. It's a bit different now, but I took that course and it was like $1,500. And she was like, "You did what?" Like you spent $1,500 on a
It's like
YouTube
that's rent,
course,
son.
right? And I was like, "Yeah, it's cool. It's gonna be worth it. It's gonna be worth it." And she didn't quite see it until then. She was like, okay. She has conceded, like, "Yeah, okay, it was worth it."
It was an
It really
investment.
well, but it was. It was a risky investment, I
Yeah,
suppose. But
that's how it always is when there's like a big purchase and the girlfriend or wife is like, do you really? I mean, do you need that other guitar? I mean, you got a few other ones. But it's like, no,
You
you
need
don't
that,
understand.
you need
This
that
one,
fourth camera.
right,
yeah, you
yeah.
really need another $2,000 4K camera.
Well, to bring it back to Hans, he has some quote that's like a synthesizer can buy you a house or something like that,
Nice.
right? That's how you justify it. That's
Huh.
I need this. I need this synth because it's
One
gonna
day
buy
this
our house
synth is
someday.
gonna buy us a house.
Right?
It's like, all right. Yeah, getting
That's
into
good.
making content's interesting, man, because it's like, especially when you look you look back, if you ever just like, oh, let me check out some old videos to see sort of how I've evolved, and you're just like, oh, I can't
Go,
watch.
go through the
Right.
archives.
Yeah,
Right.
just like just because it's easy to get more comfortable as as you do it, because it's like when you think about it, when you tell people like, oh, so what do you do? Like, oh, I make like YouTube content or videos and stuff like that. It's just like, so you talk to a camera and you're alone in a room by yourself. Yeah, pretty much. It's just like it's kind of awkward when you think about it. Or like sometimes like my girlfriend would be in the other room and I'm talking, I'm like, God damn it, or like saying something and I just like butcher it and I got to like do it again. It's just
Right.
it's like because you're just like I'm trying to get the words out or whatever. Maybe you're having a day where your brain's a little foggy or something, but
Sure.
it's just kind of like getting into that groove of just talking to a inanimate object or whatever.
Even though I've done it hundreds of times, like just be alone in a room talking to a camera, I don't see it that way as the audience. I don't
Hmm.
picture that other person alone. It's like a weird
Yeah.
thing about YouTube. You just, yeah, it's kind of a weird thing.
Is there any things that you do before filming that kind of like get you in the zone?
No, the best thing that changed my life is so I'm a scripter, not a, I don't know. Some people like have bullet points or some people just riff,
Hmm.
and I have tried that and I totally biff it. It takes me like 200 times longer if I'm trying to make it up on the spot. So I write scripts and I got a teleprompter. Changed my life. So I can record my videos now in like one take. I write the script, load up the teleprompter, hit go, knock it out. It's awesome. It's
What kind
awesome.
of teleprompter do you use?
It's the Parrot. It's nothing fancy. It's just on my camera. I can, if you really want to know, I can look. But
Is it the one where you can like put your phone underneath it to have the
yes, that's
script?
exactly what
Okay,
it
I
is.
think I
Yeah,
think I have that one actually.
use it. It's
Yeah,
really good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've like used it a little bit, and then sometimes like I'm more of like a bullet point guy,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
sometimes I think for me uh, it feels a little bit more natural for me, versus like taking the time to, because I've done that too where I've like tried to script everything out sort of thing. But I guess like either one, like there's time placed in this. Like I think with your videos, because I mean that's how I discovered you. I was just because I'm in, I love learning about composing and music theory and stuff. And
Mhm.
your videos are very concise. Like they're very
Right.
like, you know, easy to understand. Like you drop some knowledge in there for the people who are like the theory nerds and stuff. But at the same time, I think it's very applicable information. It's not too like, sometimes you watch videos and you're just like, just like goes over your head.
Right.
You know,
No, appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, so they're written. They're definitely if I ramble off bullet points, it just doesn't land.
yeah. It's just like
So, yeah.
makes the video like 3 times as long, and it's
Right.
like I probably could have
Yeah.
cut out most of that stuff.
It's person like Ali Abdal is a bullet pointer and he does not edit his own videos and he swears that you should never edit your own videos. So you don't have to follow everyone's advice. Just because I
Yeah,
script doesn't mean you should script. I had a student yesterday and I was like, I don't, this chord here isn't really working for me. You should do this, this, or this. And he was like, I hear you, but I'm not going to change it. I was
Oh
like,
my
yeah,
gosh.
okay. That's this is, it's your choice.
Right, it's your music.
It's your
yeah,
music. Yeah. And I like really respected that. It was like, yeah, that's cool. I still like my way better, but
Yeah.
do your thing.
yeah. I think yeah. Some people are just good riffers. They're just
Right.
like really charismatic's the word or whatever. Like they just
Mhm.
have that thing where they can just like go off the top of their head, and it's just like very engaging. It's like, but for some people, yeah, it's like I can totally understand how it's just like composing or doing like art. Like
Mhm.
some people want to like draw out an outline and then fill it in, or some people just like start from a nose and go out, or when it comes to
Right.
music, like piano sketch, or do you use like a string ensemble? It's just like everyone's,
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
yeah, whatever gets you from A to Z, I guess, instead of like overthinking the process.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it's the same thing. Like, I can't solo for crap. I freeze up, and I'm just like so self-conscious of like thinking about people listening to me soloing or something. So I wonder if it's the same thing of like I can't bullet point because I'm like, freezing.
It's like you kind of like need that preparation, yeah,
I think
because like
so.
improv and like playing something that you've practiced 1,000 times, it's completely different,
Right.
especially if you're in front of an audience. Like, all right, we're gonna do this, you know you know whole new thing live, and you're just gonna just rip it. Like, what?
Right.
Like
Right. Right. Yeah, actually, probably the best thing. So the best thing YouTube has done for me is made me so comfortable in front of a camera. Like to be able to just do this. Like I used to be very camera shy and be kind of like somebody asked me to make a promotional video for their library, and I remember it being like it took me like 20 takes, and I was so awkward and uncomfortable. You're talking about watching those first videos. That's what I see. Like I don't think other people see it, but what I see is like how uncomfortable I was.
hmm
And now I just turn on the camera and I'm like, "What's up? Let's do another one."
yeah,
Which is great. It's a good skill. Yeah.
yeah. How do you go about coming up with the types of educational videos that you make? Because like with like for me, it's like when you're younger, you kind of just like intake anything you can get your hands on. Like when I was
Mhm.
younger and I was getting into guitars, it's like, I'll get this VHS, whatever, I don't even care, I'll just like learn it. Like, how do you go about like sort of trying to like fill in the gaps, or like learn? Is it more like you're learning it for yourself and you're like, I think this would be informative for other people, or
As
how
far
do you
as like
usually
what
go about that?
topics to cover,
Yeah, like when you're like thinking of video, like specific video content.
there's like maybe at least three ways. One is if I have so I do teach lessons sometimes, and a student will be struggling with something, and I'm like trying to explain it, and then I'm like, I could turn that into a video because I'm like
Mm,
explaining how this thing works, so I could explain that to everyone, you know. There's that. It's very also I do it for myself. Like, what do I want to figure out? So, like, I just did one about how John Williams modulates, and
I saw that.
it's because I wanted to know. It
Mm,
was really like it wasn't because I was like that was to fill any content gap. I was just like curious. I was listening to some score and was like, whoa, that was a cool modulation. How does he do that? And then it's like, well, I might as well make it a video while I'm researching
mm.
for my own selfish needs or whatever. And then sometimes it's topical. I thought about making a video about Wicked because Wicked just came out. I didn't do it, but like that kind of stuff comes up where you're like, should I jump on this hype train?
Yeah,
Never really goes well for me. So I
yeah,
don't really put too much effort into it, but I've tried
yeah. I've
sometimes.
kind of done that sometimes too. Like we'll be like coming out with some new library, and there'll be like I think like we just came out with like a Duke library, and like Dune was like a recent score. I was like listening to that, and I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to maybe like try to compose something, inspired by that sort of thing. And it's like, oh, maybe I might get some
How'd it
people
go over?
interested or something. I mean, it was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
like some videos do better than others, but I mean,
Right.
yeah, I didn't get anyone trashing me saying that Hans Zimmer is better,
That's good. That's good. That's good.
but it wasn't better than Hans Zimmer. I'll tell you that.
Right. Yeah, I mean my stuff is pretty. I get comments from videos from 2 or 3 years ago that are like, you said you were gonna make a part two. And I'm like, oh yeah. So there's not really rhyme or reason. It's more of like, what do I want to make? Oh, this John Williams thing seems cool. Or like, oh, Dune is cool right now. Let's do Dune. It's
Yeah,
a little more by the seat of my pants than that.
yeah,
And then sometimes I'll get like a comment like that. I'm like, oh yeah, I should make part two, and I'll actually get around to it.
yeah. You get the deep divers that are going in
Right.
and
Yeah, but there's no
calling you out.
there's no master plan. It's
Yeah,
pretty couple
yeah.
weeks at a time kind of
I think
thing.
I think with content, it's always good to do something that you're into at the time because it's like
Right.
it's relevant. You're interested in it. People can tell that you have sort of you're not
Right.
just like going through the waves like, oh, so and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I'm contractually obligated
Right.
to make this
Right.
video.
Yeah, yeah. This is a paid promotion sponsored by, and then you're just
There's
like,
also I've learned my audience over time, so I don't do tech videos because they just tank. For some
yeah,
reason, people on my channel do not want to see me showing off like a plugin or reviewing something, which is a bummer because that's where a lot of like partnerships and things would come in. It would be really
Yeah.
great to be able to do that kind of content. Like I work a lot with this other YouTuber, Chris CU, and he owns every sample library you can imagine because
oh
like he
yeah,
does the reviews, and it's just like I would like all those. That would be cool, but that people don't watch them. I don't know why. So even though I would necessarily sometimes, and I like to play with the stuff too. So I'm like, yeah, that would
yeah,
be fun. I'd like to check this out, but I don't for whatever reason. It just doesn't land.
yeah.
But
I think it,
if I put John Williams in the title, people will watch it.
yeah. If you're like how to compose John Williams using
Right.
XYZ virtual
Yeah.
instrument, then people are like, oh,
I'm
okay,
like, that'll get a
this,
click. Yeah.
yeah.
So you have to play that game a little bit. But yeah, I've heard the advice, one for them, one for you, which I
Hmm.
don't follow too literally, but the sentiment is there, I guess.
You got to start a review channel so that way you can
I've
be
thought
able to
about it.
just or just
Yeah.
like a whatever like this is just for me like whatever I want to do like it or
Right.
not I'm just gonna make it.
I've thought about doing like a tech channel, like reviews and tech tips, so how to use this thing in Logic or whatever.
Hmm.
But we'll see. Time has to open up a little bit.
Yeah, so what's a regular week look like for you? You talked about doing production music, you talked about teaching, talked about YouTube. Is that like the three pillars of how you spend your time?
Yeah, pretty much. I also have a seventh grader
Okay.
who so I work from home, so I'm the one who picks up from school and does all that. So that's the other thing when you're a freelancer is you do everything. Right? You do it
Yes.
all.
Yep.
So yeah, I probably work less than some people think I do because I spend a lot of time like at home with my kid doing stuff like that. But um yeah, you pretty much described this week. Production, a couple of production library tracks, a couple students trying to get some videos out, working on a course for Master the Score. Every week is some mix of those things, pretty much. Sadly, I don't write much music for myself, which I'm going
Sure.
to try. When I finish the course I'm doing right now, that's my like 2025 project is to like actually write some music, which I know nobody really wants to listen to. It will be just for my own
Hmm.
Passion
sake, but
project. Yeah.
still, like, it needs to be done, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny how that works, how like when you like get into trying to make music your full time that slowly stop making music
Right.
full time depending on what you do, like especially like with even like what we do, it's not all just making music. It's like making the instruments and sampling, editing, and all this stuff and all the other things that come with it. But it's like, yeah, it's crazy how that sometimes kind of works out. But how do you go about balancing your week? Like, do you have like, all right, like Monday is just like, do you just kind of like block it out, all do that, or is it just like just chipping away at different things throughout the day?
I've tried that. I've tried the time blocking thing, or like Wednesday is administration day, and like it doesn't work because if you're not in the mood for like Tuesday has to be writing day, and then Tuesday comes and you're not feeling it, then you feel like you can't write on Wednesday or something. Like it just doesn't. I don't know.
Hmm.
It didn't work. I've tried it. I've beat myself up about it not working or not working or whatever. But no, I'm very much a subscriber to the Getting Things Done philosophy. If you know that book from that's probably 15, 20-year-old book, but um, the basic idea is you write every single thing you have to do down, or every thought you have, you write it down, you get it out of your head, and then you kind of process it as next actions. So I have to-do lists with like all the different things. And then recently, I can't remember the name, Carl Pulaine or something I saw had a video about categorizing your list by this week, next week, this month, next month, which has actually been way more helpful than I would have thought it was just like, all right, these are the things I actually have to do this week. And then it's just a menu. And then so on Monday morning, I'm like, all right, what do I have to do? And instead of seeing 1,800 things that I'm like, I could do, which includes like, I have like 20 video ideas. And I'm like, oh, I want to work on this video about Japanese music. And I work this video about how to train your dragon and whatever. It's like, those are not on the this week list. So they don't actually bog me down. This week, it's like the 5 things I actually have to do. Um, that has, like I said, it's surprisingly, it sounds simple, but that has helped a lot. And to like take something and be like, I could move this to next week. And
Yeah.
then, yeah. So no, I'm a to-do list junkie, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
So do you
I
just take those 5 things and then just kind of like arrange it by priority? Like, all right, if I knock this out, that'll be like a big thing off my plate, and then all right, then these are just kind of
Yeah, and sometimes it's nice to have little less important things because if you're like writing a newsletter or something is very much less effort intensive than writing a whole track or something. So having a mix of those things to fit your mood and your
Mhm.
time. But yeah, also having limited time. That was when I had a kid. All of a sudden, I had way fewer hours in my day, and so that made it much easier to focus and be like, I have 1 hour. What can I get done in this 1 hour?
mm,
It's not like
Mhm.
that anymore. He's not a baby, but when he was a baby, it was like that. It was like, okay, he's down for an hour. What can I do? So it's kind of a strange benefit of less time makes you more productive kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
But
that's I mean, it's kind of like the blessing and curse of working from home because you
right.
can sit in your room for as long as you want, or it's like, oh, like work for a couple hours, I gotta, run an errand, work for an hour, oh, I gotta, do this or that, or, throw some clothes in the washer or whatever, that kind of thing. So
If
it's
I
like,
lived alone, I'd probably stay up till 4 in the morning, and that's when I would write, would be in the middle of the night. But I have to get up at 6 because that's like middle school starts at 7.
mhm.
So I get up at 6, and then the day starts for me around 7:30. Walk the dog. Like there's just so much suburban dad is around my life,
Yeah,
But, like
that's cool
so
though.
it's in there. It's good. It works for me. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
has the kid gotten into music?
He plays trombone.
Okay,
He's what section leader in the jazz band. So
nice.
All right.
yeah, but he is not at all interested. My wife's a musician as well, and
Okay,
he's not interested in pursuing music professionally, which we are totally in support
Y-
of. We're
yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
man, if you're not feeling that bug or that bug, if you're not feeling that itch, then don't worry about it. Like there's no pressure from us to go
So,
into it, but
but he's into playing
he likes to
music now.
play, and we do make him practice. We're like, hey, if you're gonna commit to this, then you gotta,
You
if
gotta
you're
go
gonna
all
be
the
in a
way.
band, you gotta practice, and but
Yeah.
not much. But he likes it. It's good. Trombones, it's cool for me because, like we talked about, I don't know anything about brass.
Hmm.
So watching him learn the trombone from scratch was kind of a way to kind of learn a lot of those fundamentals and be like, oh, so that's how that works. Yeah.
Right.
You're like, start learning trumpet and tuba
I
and all
know,
the other
right?
ones, and then give me a crash
What do you
course.
think of this viola? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he likes music. We've been listening to Yellow Magic Orchestra. He's really into right now, which is like a Japanese electro group from the 80s or whatever. He's got good taste. So
Yeah.
that's what when we were sitting in the car, he's like, can we listen to Yellow Magic Orchestra again? I'm like, yeah, man,
You're
let's
like,
do
that's
it.
cool. You're at least, I don't know, at least it's not like I don't know,
I don't
whatever
know. Yeah. Whatever would
whatever
be bad.
music's
Yeah.
out there that is just like, oh God. Because like
I'm really into
sometimes,
pop. That's what I
oh yeah.
found with my Spotify Wrapped was way more like Sabrina Carpenter, than you would think, and like all
Yeah.
that stuff.
The production value on that stuff is amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it really is. So, um, yeah, I'm not anti anything in particular. I don't think so. Whatever he was into, I'm sure it'd be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not usually around kids too much, but sometimes they'll be like, oh, play this. And I'm like, oh, I don't know who this is. And then be like, oh God.
Yeah,
You're like, yep, confirmed.
I
I'm
mean,
old.
yeah. I mean, I like a change from something like, because a lot of the times, people probably think I listen to just like metal all the time. But usually when I'm here
right.
working, it's usually scores,
Hmm.
just because, or like video game scores, because it's like music you hear in the background while you're like doing something. So it's just
Right.
kind of like nice to have just as background,
Any
well,
favorites?
oh man. Well, Final Fantasy music, I mean, like Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 3, that's like stuff that I grew up on,
Right.
Um, like the music for Skyrim, stuff like that. What are some new ones? I like a lot of Chris Velasco stuff just because it's like super dark and heavy, like Darksiders 3 or
Okay.
those
Right.
kind of like big,
Nice.
like kind of like dark horror orchestral type stuff where it's just like, or like
So you still
Bloodborne.
like dark stuff, even when it's not metal. It's still like,
I
Yeah,
just,
it needs to be minor for
I
sure.
mean, if I mean,
right.
yeah, I mean, even Final Fantasy 7 had like little like MIDI guitars and stuff. So I guess it's just
Right. Right.
the DNA of it's always just kind of, it's just there.
It's in
That
the
is good.
blood. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, you see metal stuff.
tell us about your Master of the Score courses. What are they about?
Sure. I have Pillars of Composition is kind of the main one, and that's taking you from maybe beginner to intermediate
Okay,
composition, I guess. So like kind of go beyond what if you know diatonic harmony, we'll kind of fancy you up a little bit with borrowed chords and or how to arrange, how to take a melody and arrange it into a full little ABA piece.
nice.
And then I have a couple style ones. So I have one how to write in the style of Harry Potter,
Okay,
how to write in the style of How to Train Your Dragon, and then I have two courses out right now with my friend Gavin Leaper, which are how to write in the style of Japanese anime and JRPGs.
oh, dude.
And
Okay,
those are
cool.
super fun. They're called The Legend of Otoe, and we actually structured them. We hired a professional Japanese voice actress and got an artist and made a whole story around them. So it doesn't quite work, but kind of the idea is like you compose a little bit of your piece and then the story develops and then you compose a little bit more. And
That's a
That's
fun
pretty cool.
idea. Yeah.
yeah, I was just trying to make it a little more than just like, here's a content dump, you know? It was like,
Yeah.
and I don't know how much people are skipping the story or something, but we liked it. It was fun. But yeah. So those are masterthescore.com. Black Friday sale ends December 7th, which is probably before this goes up, but oh well. Yeah.
And
It's
then
fun.
are you allowed to talk about the one you're working on right now?
Yeah, that's Pillars of Composition 2.
Number
So it's the
two.
follow-up to the fundamentals course, and it's based on the Sonata form, but not in a super academic classical way, but more of just like here's kind of how the sonata form was structured, and we can use it even in modern music as like a way to structure a piece of music. So if you feel like you can never write something longer than 2 minutes long, maybe this is a way you could do it because there's this whole structure that they worked out a couple hundred years ago that's like actually works really well for developing your ideas and writing a longer piece. It's a lot of work. It's over like I'm going a little bit differently where some of the videos are like super short, like 1 or 2 minutes long,
Okay.
and it's like 100 videos.
Wow.
So I'm thick in editing this month with that course right now, but
Yeah.
it's coming along. It's coming
Yeah.
along.
That kind of stuff is interesting. I watched this interview. I can't remember where, it's a guy who you probably know who he is. He um, does a lot of like videos on like not 8-bit music theory, but there's another guy. He has glasses. He does like interviews and stuff with people. And he did one with Gareth Coker, and he was it was like the video was just like this concept blew my mind or something. He was talking about
Mhm.
how Gareth Coker was talking about how he uses like pop structures in all his stuff,
Mm.
and he was breaking down some stuff from like Ori and the Will of the Wisps,
I
and he
love
was
that.
just like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's another one of my favorite scores too.
Yeah.
And he's like even in the more kind of like aleatoric, dark, moody stuff, he's like you can hear that I have like this is the A section, this is the B section, and then there's the A section again, but it's like the first one, but a little bit bigger, and then here's the B section a little bit bigger, and then there's like this sort of like transition section, and then it ends, and then here's like the ending or
Right.
whatever.
Like it's like
And
verse,
it
chorus, bridge. Yeah.
pretty much, yeah, verse, chorus, bridge, and then the ending or whatever. And I was just like, that's really interesting, especially the fact that he was talking about it from like an Ayla Torque perspective, because I think he was saying that Christopher brain farting composer for Hellraiser,
Young.
Christopher Young, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess he was breaking down some scores for them in like some kind of like course or like in school, and he was showing them how that sort of approach can be used, and I was just like, that's really interesting. So it's like, and it kind of made me think about composing a certain way, because you can start with an idea and then kind of start adding another idea, but then it's like, well, where is this going? Like, I don't, you start to feel like you can just kind of go on a tangent sort of thing. But then kind of thinking about it, like, just like, because sometimes I'll just like write in chunks. I don't know how you like, one of the questions I want to ask you is kind of like how you start going about building a track or starting, but it's like, do you just kind of like just throw out a bunch of ideas, kind of like little mini suites, and then like just pick this, oh, this might be cool to like start with? Or how do you go about starting on a
Um,
track?
yeah, man, you made me think of like six things to talk about. So I'm gonna, I do want to say before that the biggest struggle, people who struggle, the biggest struggle they have is wondering what to do next
Hmm.
and like kind of just getting stuck. And the thing that they really underestimate is the simple forms that no listener cares if it's just A, B, A, C, A. Like, but as composers, that seems so just elementary and trash. Like you're like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm so much more sophisticated than that. But it's like, no, you're not. Like, or you don't need to be. Maybe you are, but like your listener is not. ABA just works, right? So just
Yeah.
do it like a pop song. They figured it out. Verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, out. Like
Hmm.
just use it because it works. The form is the part people struggle with, and it's like one of the least important things in a way. It's just like just do it. So first thing I try to do is come up with like the first two bar idea, which is like if it's a production music track, then it's like a riff, do 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 whatever. That's a
Hmm.
2 bar idea, and then it's just like, okay, how can I structure that into an 8 bar thing from that 2 bar idea, and then it's kind of like fractal, I guess, that like the 2 bar idea is the eight, and then the eight can repeat, and then I need another eight, and that becomes 16 and whatever, and then it's like, boom, 2 minutes of music, I'm done. Um, I do think a little, what's the word? Unemotionally sometimes about that stuff. But yeah, like, just like, here we go. This is the math. It works.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like with production music, like one of the things that I learned from people who kind of like dropped knowledge on me is just like always kind of like having things, either like taking something away or adding something every, 8 bars or 4 bars or whatever.
Right.
It's just like, oh, okay. Cause like you start noticing that when, I mean, when you're listening to like a whole production track, you can kind of get more of the gist of it. But when you're hearing it, sometimes when you're watching like Hell's Kitchen or something, they'll just be taking like, one little like 2 bar thing, like dun, 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 dun,
Right.
and he's like, oh, okay, like that didn't, but then, there's like a whole track that's got all these different chunks. But like that's something that I felt kind of helped me is like, not just, because I think a lot of times people just tend to like, all right, I got this, little string thing, and then I'm gonna add this thing, and then I'm gonna add this thing, but then it just keeps like stacking and building kind of thing.
Right.
Versus just like maybe just like taking this away and then adding another element like some ticky percussion, or then like some little low hits, or like, but then now you take out the high strings, now it's just low strings, and it's like you can kind of hear it sort of kind of evolving around each other. And because other than that, it's easy to just kind of like just go buck wild and just
S-
stacking
Stack.
everything. And
Yeah, the
yeah.
stack is a problem. Yeah, the thing being a YouTuber made me a better production music composer. Because sometimes I'll use music. I just want like some background stuff. Usually, if it's like an announcement video or something, it's like this needs some energy. I need some music, and I don't use my own stuff because I don't want to deal with my own copyright problems with like these companies I'm using. So I use Soundstripe. Um, and the number one thing I want from a track is for it to stay the same for as long as possible. It's like annoying when the track changes to some different vibe because I was like, that wasn't the vibe I needed. It was this first one that I needed, and then I end up having to like cut it and edit it.
Right.
And so on the composer side, I've started to do way less and realize like that's what people want. They want the vibe, not all the brilliant things you do with it or whatever. They want the vibe. So it's been working. I think I've been just doing kind of backing off, and like I said, I'll add like a little bit to change up a new percussion thing. Maybe the bass does something a little different, but the general feeling is still the same. But that's for production music. I mean, it's different than your magnum opus or whatever, I guess. But,
Yeah. Yeah, writing for production music and then just general, I guess like writing for yourself, it's like totally different. It's like you kind of have to like go into like a different thought process because it's like you're thinking of like, okay, like how is this going to be like how is it going to be used or like the feel like,
yeah,
oh, this is going to be for, like some new cop drama on
most of what
NBC,
I do, yeah.
yeah. So it's like,
Right.
so you have to kind of think, oh, okay, like what's sort of that vibe or, that
Right.
sort of, like not going too like trailery, but still trying to just keep it like, high energy and
Going.
intense.
Changing without changing. That's the trick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I guess, an art in its own way, but yeah.
Just throwing a bunch of industrial hits and
Every
drum
so
loops.
often, there
Just
you go. Damage just covers
Yeah.
it for you. Yeah. Exactly. You're done.
So we just have three quick questions at the end, and then we'll call it a day here. The first
good.
one is a best recent purchase under $100. So this can be software. It doesn't have to be music related. Just something you've spent less than $100 on that you really enjoy.
Um, I'll do a music related one. I got this little, I don't know if this is audio, but I'll hold it up anyway. I got this little Akai
Ooh, yeah.
MIDI controller because my desk, I can't fit an 88 key keyboard. I have a 61 key keyboard, and I found getting key switches was really annoying. I'd be hitting the octave key and
Yep.
getting the switch and then hitting the octave key to be back where I wanted to be. And at one point I was just like, why am I doing this to myself? And so I got this little Akai to have right in front of me. And now I use that for key switches specifically. Um, and that was less than $30, I think. Like
I like
25
that.
maybe.
Quality of life improvement.
Right. Simple little things.
The next one is favorite YouTube channel or podcast or TV show at the moment. Just something you're enjoying.
Man. I feel like it's kind of a lame answer, but so there's the suburban dad answer. We just watched Man on the Inside, which is the Ted Danson show
Oh
on
yeah,
Netflix.
I've heard
It
it's
was
good.
good. Yeah, it's by the guy who made Parks and Rec and Good Place.
Yep.
It was a good show. We liked it. So yeah,
Ted
that's our
Danson is
answer.
a fan favorite. I like
He's
it.
a charming guy. Yeah.
All right, last question is what goals do you see yourself achieving in the next few years? What's next for Ryan?
To write some music for myself.
Nice.
That's the focus. And I think to get something, I haven't worked with an orchestra in a while and probably longer than I would like to admit for people who watch the YouTube content and probably think I'm working with more often. So
How dare
something
you?
orchestral and getting that like actually played by a live group. That's
Nice.
that's what I'm aiming for 2025, which is a nice square year, right?
Hell yeah. I'll be keeping my eye out for that.
Thanks.
I'm gonna send you an email like, where's that music at, Ryan?
Yeah, right? Like
Little
Where's that-
accountability.
Where's that part two or that video?
prime production music library track, but
Yeah. Nice. But yeah, man, it's great to have you on. I've been
Yeah,
a fan
thanks
of
so
your
much.
channel for a long time, and it's really cool to have you on and talk to you about everything. And yeah, looking forward to seeing some more videos and hearing some actual Ryan tracks.
I
Yeah, we'll
appreciate it.
send
Yeah.
people to your YouTube channel and Master the
Yeah.
Score so they can check out more.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right,
Awesome,
peace,
man.
Ryan.